I think the reality is like that, right? Reality is that, the chicken and egg problem in a sense where, you want to get investors, you want to have results. And if you don't have money, you can't get results. And if you can't get results, you cannot get money. So that's sort of things that we always into.
You're listening to Foodie Canteen. I'm your host, Castle Lim. In this podcast, I sit down with Southeast Asia's leaders, entrepreneurs, and content creators in the F&B space. This is where you will learn about their trade secrets. Or maybe you'll just find them as your next door neighbor. This show is supported by Good Foodie Media. For foodies who want to connect to the world through food, they curate the best spots to eat and drink in Malaysia, Bangkok, and Singapore. Check them out on Instagram for more. From humble beginnings to starting an online platform that raised 1.2 million ringgit, my guest today helps home cooks, creators, and entrepreneurs realize their visions by providing a simple, comprehensive platform enabling small businesses to grow, while the mom and pops focus on what matters most, the food. Yong Lin believes in riding the wave of digitalisation by embracing the power of modern technology, regardless of technological experience. These beliefs have become the core drivers of Kravve.
I would say that, we came from a very typical family, right? We live in a small little flat. I think growing up childhood, it was quite difficult, like financially. Like, we went to, you go to Mid Valley. I mean, like 20 years back, Mid Valley was pretty new, right? It was a hype back then. So I think, go to Mid Valley, back then, it was quite tough to even order thing that is, beyond like $15 or things like that. So it was like quite challenging. So, we always try to, control a certain budget. So I think that was actually, my childhood, one part of my childhood, but, the other part was actually quite grateful that, my mom has always been very encouraging and sort of trained my personality as well. So so I'm a very naughty kid, when I was a kid, right? So I was when you were in school, when you do stupid things, right? And then your teacher would sort of summon your parents to come over and have a chat. And that happens almost on a weekly basis for me in primary school. So until one point, my mom would be my mom was telling my teacher, hey, you know what? Feel free to discipline my kid. I'm not gonna, interfere anything. I'm not gonna sue the school for hitting my kid, and that sort of stuff, right? And then I was forced to I was actually educated in a way where, I'm supposed to handle my own situation. When I have a problem with the teacher, it's like, hey, my mom will be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna tell you what you should do, but you're the one who's supposed to go and talk to your teacher, not me, and that sort of stuff. So I sort of being brought up in that kind of environment, and I think that was actually very helpful, in terms of shaping my personality, in the long run.
Just like the market you cater to, the idea for Kravve actually began from home, more specifically in a conversation with your mother. Can you tell us more about that?
Right. So I still recall, it was a Sunday, I think. A couple of years back, it was Sunday. So I was still having a job right back then. I mean, I'm still having a job in Kravve. So, but that was, and I was in another company. So I think it was Sunday morning. So, as usual, I was just sitting around on my dining table in my house. So, I was talking to my mom casually, and, I'm not sure about, your mom, but my mom is being a very typical Asian mom. So I was like, hey, I made this really nice pumpkin jam and given to neighbors and given to the relatives, and they love it so much. Hey, why don't you try? She wanted to sort of acknowledge her effort into making that nice jam. So that sounds like a good idea. Having been working in a startup for a couple of years, I sort of understand a bit of what we call product market fit, right? So people like the product itself, so they're the people who is interested to buy. So it's like since all these guys actually have high reviews about this product itself, I was like, hey, maybe there's some kind of product market fit there. And I was like, hey, why don't you actually sell it to somebody? And since we don't come from a very wealthy family, I thought maybe we could have a better Chinese New Year, because I think that was actually about 2 or 3 weeks prior to Chinese New Year for that year itself. I was like, maybe we can sell some of this stuff and then we can have a better Chinese New Year. So, unfortunately, she told me that, hey, it's not really something that is as straightforward as you think. And, being young and being naive at that time. So I was like, hey, I don't believe you, let me just try to sell. So, long story short, I didn't make it. So I think that was when I discovered, how difficult it is, for a stay-at-home mom like my mom to actually make it work for herself, right? Even though she has a skill set, right? She's supposed to be able to monetize her skill set, but she can't because there's a lot of obstacles in between. And that's also why this is also how I discover, moving on from where I discovered that, hey, this is not a problem that is unique to my mom, right? And there are a lot of people out there who are actually facing the same kind of issue as well. So that's where we thought, hey, maybe this is something that I really want to work on and really want to solve it as well.
When were you first exposed to the idea of entrepreneurship? Like you said, you were working in startups prior to starting Kravve.
Yeah. So I think, like a short story, it was when I was in university. I think that was actually 2018 or like 2019 and 2020. I don't remember, like a couple of years back, maybe like 7 years back or 6 years back. But that was, when I was in my university. So, I did a lot of things in my university, right? So towards my last 2 years of my university life, I decided to, try different things. I think a lot of people, even though, I've heard a lot of friends, my classmate on during the final SEM, they'll be like, hey, shit, the SEM is almost finished and, our degree is, we're almost graduating and, what should we do in my life, right? That sort of is a very common conversation, within final year students. I'm very fortunate to be able to sort of know what I wanted to do when I was about to graduate, simply because I spent 2 years prior to that to really experience different aspects of the industry. I was running events. I've, run over 100 events during my university life. I was also running not sure whether you heard of this organization called TED Talk, TEDxKL. So I was actually organizing TEDx, as well. So it was a 5,000 people event. It was pretty big. We even rented as like a stadium for all the audience. So I've also in NGO before. I was representing Malaysia in one of the UN conference. Not sure whether you heard of this thing called the SDG goal. So I was part of the people who, before SDG goal was born, we were the one who was drafting the memorandums, right? So I was in Bali, in Indonesia. So, it was pretty high panel in a sense where I was actually sitting, when you walk into the hall, right, you see like tables, and then in the middle of tables, you have flags, Malaysia, flag Thailand, flag Indonesia, flags, very high level kind of thing. Like people beside me, like Southeast Asia director of this international NGO, like deputy ministers of Malaysia. We actually had a Malaysian minister there as well. So it was like, I was like, nobody did that. But anyways, that was my experience, right? So I didn't actually like it so much because that was when I read UN report, the United Nations report. I realized that 90% of funds is being used on what we call administration costs back then. And that was where I realized, hey, this is how I got my flight paid, fly over. That's how we managed to book the whole of Nusa Dua, all the 5-star hotels with private beaches. Where we are eating 5-star hotel food, talking about what's going to happen in the world, right? If I really wanted to drive impact, I want to be on the grassroots. And that was actually when I did not actually, fancy too much about, being at a very high level. After that, I was also experiencing in things like corporate training because I really like to talk, share my knowledge. And I wasn't sure what it was like. I picked face. So I went to a speaker in one of the conferences. I was like, hey, Mr. Speaker, what? Can I volunteer my time? I'm going to be your free facilitator. All I want is just bring me around into different places to, train and just experience what is it like. So I followed him, to Malacca and so on, right? Different companies, to see what it's like to be a corporate trainer. Soon I discovered entrepreneurship, right? That was when I really liked about. So, I have a whole lot of experience into knowing what I did not like. 2 years later, I discovered, hey, I really like about entrepreneurship. So I think what I really liked about was actually the satisfaction. I mean, it's not about the money itself, but it's more towards satisfaction, right? So, for example, if my company created a cup, right, like a mug, and I saw that Castle, you are using the mug to make coffee in the morning, and I somehow felt very empowered in a sense where I feel like I somehow through my creation contributed a part to your morning happiness, and that is sort of satisfaction that you couldn't get elsewhere, and that's how I'm actually into entrepreneurship.
So how did the conversation with your mom lead to you and your partners actually seeing this gap in the market and actually taking action on it?
It was, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? I tried a couple of times, didn't make it. I was always seeking an opportunity to really venture on my own. I want to do something that's impactful, but at the same time, I do not want to do, I don't want to run business for the sake of running a business, right? That's not what I really want to do. So, that was where, I chanced upon, this really amazing opportunity. And I think that it's also a problem that lies deeply in my heart, because I personally experienced that problem on my own as well. So that was when, I thought, hey, maybe I could just give it a try. And back then I did not have a partner. I only came across two of my co-founders like 1 or 2 years later. They joined sort of midway, but although they're still the second or third person in the company. But yeah, so I started that directly because I've always been looking out to see what can I really do. And that was what I wanted to do at that point in time.
So from maintaining a social media presence to answering the same questions on a daily basis, selling products online is really not as easy as it looks. I read that you guys are making this 16-step process into a 2-step process. But how can Kravve help home cooks, like you said, the neighborhood uncle, aunties, with the business side of things as they focus on what they do best?
Right. Okay. So like, if for us to really understand this, we sort of had to understand, what's the difficulty like, when it comes to, doing business on social media. So when, a lot of people talk about digitalization and so on, right? But, what really is about digitalization? Is it like, you put on Facebook, it's considered digital, or is it not, right? So one of the biggest misconception about it is actually not. So when it comes to digitalization, you're supposed to be able to automate, almost all the process. And that's what the true digitalization is really all about. So, but unfortunately, because there's so many different factors out there, people aren't able to actually go digital fully, right? So like most people will just be starting on social media, say Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And, on a daily basis, let's just say you have like 10 customers. So let's say 10 customers. So they're going to like PM you and you're going to talk to them. And then, then you probably need to like arrange delivery one by one, send them to them. So that's like a whole 16-step process. So, I've personally spoken to a lot of, like when it comes to local mom and pops, when they want to scale online, no, it's not hard to make like 500 ringgit or like 700 ringgit. But, if you really want to make it like a real business, to be able to like, make a full-time income, like a, sustainable income for the entire family, like if you're living in KL, you should probably expect, anywhere between 3 to 4K for the household income, at least to be able to survive, right? That's not possible, right? Because if you wanted to go beyond a 500 ringgit range, you probably need to have, if you're not automating stuff, you probably need to like hire people and so on, right? And that's a totally different ballgame for most of the local mom and pop businesses to scale. So what we do is very simple. We try to actually minimize all the processes so that they can focus on what truly matters for them, which is making the product and marketing the product itself, right? And leave a lot of manual operational work to the system itself, so that the system can actually save a lot of the time.
Was it hard? Like looking back right now, it's been a couple years. What was one of the biggest hurdle you faced?
I would say, was it hard? I think that was definitely hard, right? For 4 years of my life, I mean, like Kravve truly grown within the last, 1.5 year. We grew like, 10, 20 times over the past 1 or 2 years. But, to go through that first 3 years without any sort of significant revenue was quite difficult, right? So I think one of the challenges that I faced was actually, we are constantly running out of money. I think there were like three to four different moments where we are close to running out of business. Like if I don't get any sort of money in the next 3 days time, we're probably going to be like closing door and that sort of stuff, right? I think that was actually the challenge, because I think the reality is like that, right? Reality is that the chicken egg problem, in a sense where you want to get investors, you want to have results. And if you don't have money, you can't get results. And if you can't get results, you cannot get money. So that's sort of things that we always into. And unfortunately, we sort of like broken out of that cycle already right now. But I think that was the very difficult moment, right, for the first couple of years. I think just to sort of illustrate a bit more was, I think there was one time I was trying to buy Zafran and then I don't have money to buy. And I happened to realize that I don't have money. So, it's not because I don't have cash. Like, right now you have e-wallets, right? You don't have cash, right? So that was not the time where you have e-wallets, right? I didn't have the money to pay for my my economic rise, and I look at my bank account, I had like one figure, and like Malaysian bank like ATM, you can't actually take out one figure, right? It's like the least you can take out is like $10. So I was like, then fortunately my car has some shillings, right? Like some coins that I used to pay it off with. So that was actually how, and that was actually one example. I think the other example was that up until for the past 3 to 4 years time, we've been taking like 500 ringgit to a maximum of 1.5K a month. Up until this year, 2021 February, we were still taking about 1.5K a month. And I think that is the sort of like hurdle that you sort of need to go through. And I think that I sort of made that decision where this is something that I really want to do. It's not about the money, because I could have made a lot more money being in any job, actually. Being in any job is going to pay me more than 500 ringgit per month, or more than 1.5K a month. But that was the choice. And I think, I look at it and I believe that the idea is going to work, and I see that we have progress. And every single time when we've been through that situation, we thought, we are one step closer, and if we don't die, we have a chance to make it work. If we die tomorrow, we have no chance. So try to make it work.
That was Yong Lin. You're listening to Foodie Canteen. When we come back, our guest tells us how he raised 1.2 million ringgit for his startup and his advice for our listeners. If you want to make money, entrepreneurship is not for you. This show is supported by Good Foodie Media. For a foodie who wants to connect to the world through food, that's where you go. Find Penang Foodie, KL Foodie, Halal Foodie, and Bangkok Foodie on Instagram. They curate the best spots to eat and drink in these cities.
It's just like going back to what you say, the illustration that you gave me. If I'm holding a cup that you made today, you feel so much satisfaction. And of course, going back to a corporate job, you're going to get paid so much more, but you chose this path, and to pay yourself that amount of money, this is your own decision. And despite those challenges, Kravve has actually recently made headlines because you guys managed to raise 1.2 million ringgit. Can you walk us through that process of how you guys did that?
Right. Okay. So initially we didn't want to raise 1.2 million. We wanted to raise like 200K. So, very, very grateful that, a lot of people are rallying behind us, and, they are supporting the kind of vision and mission that we see as well. So I guess, I think if I were to just sort of like tweak the question a bit more, right, in terms of like what I've learned throughout the journey, I think one of the major factor was actually, we are telling that story. And I think that's what Malaysian entrepreneurs are lacking of. I think we fail to tell a story that can be, that can resonate with a lot more people. Like a lot of Malaysian entrepreneurs have great mission, great vision as well. But I think, we are so shy, and we're not like Americans, right? We are just, we don't keep things like, we so that we are don't seen as like arrogant and things like that, right? It's just, within our upbringing. And so that's what I see a lot. And I think that is actually what's stopping us to get, community to rally behind us. And I think when you have a great cause, right, you sort of need to tell it to people, tell it to the world, hey, this is a great cause. Those who agree with this cause, come together and let's make it a reality. Because I believe that any great cause wouldn't be able to become a reality with just one person. You need a bunch of people around you to make it a reality. And I think that was actually one of the factors that I think leads to our somehow success towards fundraising, because we are telling the story. And I think we want, we had a presentation for the 45 minutes to the investors, to the potential investors. And I always end up with one line. So I was like, hey, you know what? Those numbers that I show you guys, if it looks amazing, cool, awesome. But if you are really investing, I hope that you are not investing because of the numbers that you are seeing, but also because you truly believe in the kind of future that we are building. And I think that is what you truly wanted to invest in. So because beautiful numbers, you can get it anywhere in the world. But if you really want to actually, invest in something that you truly believe in, and that was also one of the, sort of disclaimer that I gave to the investor throughout during the end of the presentation. And I think that was actually one of my key takeaways, because since then, I think we have got a lot more people understand what we do. They do not see us as, just a place to buy some food, but a place where it's beyond food, just to speak.
The sellers on your platform, they range from single parents, housewives to retirees. How do you think Kravve has impacted their lives so far?
So I think we could have done so much more. I think we're sort of like 0.001% there. I think we definitely could have done so much more, which I'm like totally aware of, right? Because every day you see that so many people lost their job, and so many people are not not within our reach yet, right? Simply because we're still a relatively small company, we can't reach out to like the whole of Malaysia. We are not like the likes of Lazada and Shopee, where you can run, we can, like recently you have seen like Jackie Chan, on Shopee, like literally everyone knows about that. But I think we do not have that capability at this point in time to reach out to every single one in Malaysia. And I think there are a lot of people who do not know about Kravve yet. So I believe that we could have done so much more, but I think in terms of what we have done so far, we have got more than 1,000 sellers with us. Some of them are making decent amount. Like for example, one of these, like dumpling, like Chinese dumpling, the rice dumpling. We actually helped her to sell. She managed to sell like 5,000 pieces in 10 days time. So that's also some of the examples that we could give. But I think there was actually some minority. I think we could have done a lot more. That's what I'm trying to do right now. Trying to make Kravve something that a lot of people knows. At least if you're not using, that you have an option. That Kravve is here to actually help you to bring your business online. And I think when the times comes, people could think about Kravve is that, hey, you actually have the power of controlling your destiny, or maybe you have the power of actually making your business work in your hand. At least they are sort of aware of Kravve is actually here. That's what we are trying to build on right now.
There are sellers that are young and tech savvy, but there are also the other portion where they might not be too tech savvy. How do you support this other portion, maybe the older generation, to even out the playing field on Kravve?
Right. I think you actually made a really, really good point. Like even out of playing field, I think that's what we're trying to do as well. Actually, I think what we're trying to do is really trying to level the playing field so that our local mom and pops, those who are less tech savvy, less technology savvy, less business savvy, they are able to stand an equal opportunity to get this cover and to get sales, against all these giant mega corporations out there, like, Tesco and so on and so forth, right? And that's what we're trying to, allow them to do so. So I guess what we're trying to do is try to create a solution where it's actually self-serving, that they are able to, within the next 5 to 10 minutes time, without knowing how to use a computer, to be able to get the fully automated store set up directly within the next 5 to 10 minutes time. And it's completely free for them. You just need to have a phone and sign up, and there's no approval process. Sign up directly, and then you're able to set up a store, and every single thing is handled for you once you're done within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Logistics is handled, delivery, like customer service is handled as well. So all of that is being handled. So like literally, to put it into perspective, right? If someone is running a business using what Kravve has, they're tapping into the ecosystem that we have built, which allow them to send to entire Malaysia, regardless of their product, right? If it's a frozen product, yes, we can do that for you. If it's a normal courier, like you're using DHL and things like that, it's fine. If you want to use dispatch, like same day delivery or same hour delivery, that's fine as well. So we sort of cater to all sort of different, food nature itself. And then to put it into perspective, somebody, instead of doing all this manual work, they can literally just take order and wait at home. And, somebody will just show up on their doorstep and collect the orders and send to the customers directly. And all they do is just make product and wait at home. And that's what we intend to allow them to do.
Many businesses have suffered due to the pandemic, but for Kravve, it's a digital platform. You guys are thriving, you are gaining your popularity, even though you said you're not as big as other platforms. But this is due to the change in the new normal. People are staying at home and selling online. What do you think Kravve's future will look like after the pandemic is over?
Well, I think, the sort of digitalization of businesses, it's inevitable, if you think about that. If you look into Southeast Asia, you actually realize that a lot of people are actually going online, regardless of the pandemic, right? I think the pandemic is not a sole factor that e-commerce is thriving. It's probably pushing it a lot faster, but it's not a sole factor, right? Because it's regardless of it, it's gonna come. It's just that it's gonna be 5 years later to today. And why do I say 5 years later? Because recently I read a report, I think it's by IBM or like McKinsey, I forgot. But the e-commerce, the pandemic itself has accelerated the e-commerce adoption process in Southeast Asia by 5 years ahead of the initial schedule. What it means is very simple, right? The amount of people that will be buying and selling online in the next 5 years, they're already doing so today. But if you think about that, regardless, it's going to reach there 5 years later, right? It's just that it's faster right now. So that's what we are seeing. And I think that the trend is definitely here to stay. And if you look into it, right, I think digitalization and going online, it's inevitable, right? If you look into the US, if you look into China, it's sort of inevitable. In fact, China is a really good predictor about what's going to happen in Southeast Asia context. China is so much, about 5 to 10 years ahead of Southeast Asia in so many aspects, right? In e-commerce, in payment, in cashless, and so on, right? Like back then, the whole China already is cashless. We do not even have touch and go app yet. So that was it. So like right now, when China is already capitalizing on the rise of mom and pops by enabling them to go online, and then we are also going to see this trend trickle down to Southeast Asia context in the next 5 to 10 years time. 5 years time, probably. And then we believe that we wanted to actually start today. And I think that is what we are seeing, because if it's not us, then who is going to do so, right? Because if you think about that, it's not like our local mom and pops do not want to go online, right? I think they all wanted to go. They all realized that how important, especially after the pandemic has made this realization even more apparent. I mean, if you think about that, if those sellers who sort of lost their business during the pandemic, if they had gone online prior to the pandemic, this wouldn't have happened to them. And I think this pandemic has become a wake-up call to a lot of people that, going online is, you never know that tomorrow there's another, COVID-20 going to come out, right? So that was actually, I think, it's going to stay. It's just that, can we make it so much easier for those who are not very tech savvy, not very e-commerce savvy, to really go online? And that's what our goal is all about.
As Kravve specializes in home cooking, do you anticipate future issues with food safety regulations as your platform grows bigger?
Yeah, I do. I mean, like at the end of the day, that is actually our utmost priority, right? Eventually, as we grow bigger, we're probably going to be regulating a lot more, and I think that that essentially is what Kravve future lies. Because if you think about that, food hazard has always been there and will always be there, right? And if you buy on, like, I think a lot of people even got like scammed on Facebook, buying things, pay for a cake, the cake never arrives, or like these people order like 10 cakes but decided to pull out, and this seller make 10 cakes but cannot sell it to anyone. So that sort of things happen all the time. And I think a couple of months back, because durian season, a lot of people are selling durians on Facebook, and it's the new page with 20 likes. People got scam money because they are buying, durian from people. So I think it's not only about food hazard, but the whole security itself, whether or not it's a financial scam or like food security, the whole thing is something that we really care a lot. And I think having Kravve as an intermediary, we are able to actually ensure and protect both sides, right, seller and buyer, so that that anything happen, Kravve will be here to help you, right? Someone's not going to scam your money, and someone not going to order your product and not pay money as well. So that's what Kravve is all about, I think.
You are the living image of third time's the charm. This is your third attempt at starting a business. Is there any advice you can offer to our listeners on the podcast?
I would say, so I think it's just a bit backstory. I think, now that if you have listened until now, you probably have realized that entrepreneurship sometimes is not easy and it's not as glamorous as it looks on the surface, right? I'm on a podcast. You might think that I'm fairly successful right now. You've probably seen, us making a bit of news and so on here and there. And that was when, a lot of my friends, came to me, hey, Yong Lin, I saw that you're on the news. Wow, you look like very famous, very successful. I also want to run a business. That was actually what drives a lot of people to run a business, right? The fame, the sort of limelight and so on, right? And I think that was when, I will always ask my friends, so what's the reason that you want to run a business, right? Is it because you want to make a lot of money, right? And I think most people actually answer that itself. And that is actually very alarming in a sense where, because there are a lot of ways of making money. And startup is probably one of the least effective way of making money. I'm not sure whether you guys know about the statistics, right? 90% of startup actually fail. And you're probably going to fail, right? You're probably going to lose your time and money that you invested into the business. And you have a very, very good 90% chance of losing all your money, right? If you want to make money, you would have a better chance, like way better chance, like being a property agent, selling insurance and so on, right? You have a way better. In fact, I have a friend who is same age as me. It was my classmate in high school who dropped out of the school and is now a millionaire in cash, and is driving like literally Ferrari and he was in the property industry. So like you really have a better chance of making money if your sole purpose is to make money, right? And I think the reason why we have sort of go through the hurdle of like, there are 4 years of my life not making money, 500 ringgit to 1.5K is the max I've made on a monthly basis. And we have 3 to 4 times almost going bankrupt, got to somehow borrow some money from somewhere or something like that to go through it. And then it's actually easier to give up, during that kind of moment. Imagine you only have 500 ringgit per month, and then you sort of couldn't afford, people are eating like mac and cheese, but you couldn't afford mac and cheese. You need to eat like nasi lemak, that kind of stuff, right? So it's actually true. So if your sole purpose is to make money, you would have given up. And I would have given up too, right? I wouldn't be speaking in this podcast today, actually. So I guess the one advice is basically know your why. Why are you doing so? Are you willing to sort of do whatever it takes to make this a successful venture? Or you're just in it for the money, right? If you're just in it for the money, do something that is more proven. Maybe open a boba tea shop or something. That's sort of going to get you higher rate return and less risk as well, in a sense. What's next for Kravve? I think Kravve really wanted to I believe that, Kravve is really not a company that belongs to Yong Lin, right? Kravve, I believe that Kravve should be a company that belongs to whole Malaysian. Because I think we want to stand for a place where Malaysian can support Malaysian businesses. That's where you can find all the food and grocery by local sellers that could be your neighbor, that could be your your nasi lemak auntie outside of the roadside and so on, right? And we want to stand for that. And I think we want to actually help more people to be able to discover local products and also showcase more local products to local Malaysians. And I think to do that, we want to be able to make sure that most Malaysians actually know that we exist. And I'm very grateful that we have this opportunity to speak today. So I think in the next 12 months, we wanted to make sure that try our best to make sure that Kravve is a household name, that more people knows about us. And in return, more people can know that, hey, now they have an option. Because if you think about that, if you are already buying grocery, and instead of buying some important product from the UK, you can buy similar product that is equally good, if not better, from your local people. And I think the matter is that most people do not know that they have this option. And we want to allow more people to actually know that they have this option to support the local businesses. You have just listened to Yong Lin's story on Foodie Canteen. The show is produced by me, your host Castle Lim, and co-written by Sulin Chang. Foodie Canteen podcast is made possible by the excellent team at Good Foodie Media. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Foodie Canteen for more. Follow us for brand new episodes every Friday. Thanks for listening.